Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. My apologies. I know I had a big technical issue this morning, but that's okay. Everything's resolved and just running a wee bit late. Welcome to a beautiful Monday in Brisbane because it's starting to cool down. We've only got a week left to go until autumn is officially here. So we're getting our cool nights back and we're all feeling a lot better for it. Okay, while I've been absent from doing lives, I've been doing a lot of research and gaining a lot of understanding to provide a lot of practical elements for us as we travel down the path of being not only trauma informed but able to apply these concepts and neurobiological and neurophysical, etc., into our day-to-day life, because it's all well and good to understand what's happening in our brain, what's happening in our vagus nerve, our parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system, and so much more. But if we can't apply it to our day-to-day life in a practical way, then we just are left with an understanding. We're not left with combining the two together. Now, one of the things that is absolutely very close to my heart is parenting and trauma. One, because I've seen how generations of being parented with unresolved trauma doesn't work, and then because my children have been affected by trauma both handed down and in this life, I've also had to manage being a mum to kids with different challenges as well. Now they're adults and the way I've had to parent has become different each time they go through a new awareness, new growth stage, come into having a different set of needs, etc., etc. And this was made really clear to me yesterday. My youngest son lives with me and he's 20, but he's independent, and he decided to come to church with me yesterday. And about halfway through, as much as the social engagement is really good and people love him there, he hasn't been in a very long time due to the trauma. Not only that is handed down, but is also he experienced a break-in where he was beaten up physically, and he has the most kindest, gentle heart. So for that to happen was just... It just tips you over the edge with needing to work out what's happening at a neurobiological level. And our biology plays such a deep part. The understanding of what's happening and what we need plays such a deep role in us being able to recover. And because he listens to what I say, etc., etc., and he's in group, he began to understand what was happening with his brain and more, and is able to begin to take steps to reclaim his life. Through recovery is really the simplest way. So halfway through the session yesterday, he didn't want to go home, but he knew he needed to go home, and I explained to him what was happening for him. And it does. We want the social engagement. We want to be able to sit down and just have a chat with somebody. As we call it over here in Australia, shoot the breeze. But when our neurobiology is working against us, then we need to honour that that's what's happening. I've stretched myself. I've left the house. So we've got to look at the dynamics. I've left the house. I've gone to a new place because we have a new church premises. So I've gone to a new place. And see, when we do that, our brain has to map it all out, okay, for us to feel safe, especially when we've experienced trauma, okay? I just call it my trauma brain so that I know that this is what I need, this is what has to happen, and this is what I'm capable of. So I'm able to sit in a zone where I'm going to feel comfortable and not go into emotional dysregulation, not because I choose to go into emotional dysregulation, it's because it's driven from the brain's reaction, nothing that I have control over. So I said to him, look, you've done this amazing thing. I've seen the improvements you've made for yourself around home. You've come out, you've been social, you've spoken to people. I said, and at the moment your brain's just overwhelmed. It'll be tired. This is natural for when we start stretching ourselves back into the world. So go, yeah, great. I've had a great time this morning. Okay, we need to leave early. We go early. You go and have a rest, because that's what your brain needs in order not to just to process what's happened, but when the neurobiological reactions happen, it's exhausting because it's all new information that our brain has to process. So we have to be able to be compassionate and understanding for ourselves, and us as parents, we have to be compassionate and understanding that trauma recovery is a one step, one day at a time, not the attitude of having expectations that you should just be able to do this. It won't work. And if you parent in that manner with expectations, you're going to do damage. You're going to re-traumatize the person that you've got that attitude with. We have to have the kindness and compassion to understand that what happens in the brain is beyond that person, beyond our child's. Sorry, I'll just slow down for a minute. It's beyond our control. So even with myself, I had to come to, in order to advance my recovery, I had to come to understand that there were things that were beyond my control and start working with what I could do, accepting what I could do and what I can't do. But there are some very basic essentials that we need, and it's in parenting that I've applied it to, but we can absolutely apply it to all of those around us who we are aware that are going through trauma recovery. Okay? Now, these are still early days. Early days when people are becoming informed, are starting to understand the ACEs study, and so much more. These are early days when we're starting to get the message out that trauma is intergenerational, and we're the first generation that get to stand up and say, okay, I need to be the generation that uses my voice and my intelligence and wisdom and understanding to learn as much as I can so that my children are better informed, so that their children will become more informed. And it's not just going to be one generation and we're through this. It won't happen that way because it's gone on for so many generations, okay? And we can't blame anybody. It is what it is, and it was what it was. I had unprocessed trauma when I carried all three of my children, and it's only because I have been tenacious and, like a British bulldog, and held on so tightly that there had to be more answers than what I was being given, that I've arrived at this place of deep understanding within myself. Plus, now I go, right, this is the information we need, and I have the practical applications. So this morning, just 5 very basic essentials for parenting with trauma. We're going to need to learn and understand what boundaries really are. They're not about keeping people out. They're about being able to say, this is where I'm at. And I'm going to use the analogies from being a mum. Be as honest with your kids as you can. And that doesn't mean we give them every emotional detail. Mum just can't do everything that she normally does today. let's sit down and just have some fun for, even if it's 20 minutes, it'll give your brain a break, but it also says to your kids, okay, I have a boundary of what I can and can't do. I need to rest. And you know what? I did this with my kids years ago when they were younger, and it's the best thing I ever did, because they're now able to say to me what they can and can't do. It leads into another part of parenting and trauma, which is communication. But with the boundaries, it gives them a really clear idea that something's happening for us. It's not their fault. Be very clear that it's not their fault. And we can work together. Okay, so we're going to work together. You can do this, I can do this, etc., etc. So work it out. Work as a team. You don't want to overwhelm yourself or your child. So sit down and teach them the basics of, okay, things are escalating here. Let's use our stop sign. And look, honestly, this is the best thing, because visuals, and now I can't find it, can I? Oh, no, that's right, I gave my other one away to a client. Visuals are the best thing for kids, okay? So cut out a piece of red cardboard, put the word stop, and you're teaching them language, okay? And get a magnet, stick it on the fridge, and give everyone permission to use it, because oftentimes we may not have the language when we become overwhelmed to just say stop, okay? So use a stop sign to say stop, and you can even write on here your family rule. For 1 minute, we go to separate corners and we go and breathe. We go and do deep breathing. And the deep breathing is 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out. And what you want to do is imagine breathing into your chest area. All right, so you want to physically move your chest up and down in order that you're engaging both the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, okay? They're the systems that become dysregulated, all right, because of what happened when we were younger, all right? So our breathing plays such an essential part in our recovery. When you learn these things and you teach your children, you're equipping them to have tools to deal with their trauma responses when they're outside of the home as well. And the best thing is, when you teach your kids this and they get older, they come to you and say, Mum, slow down. Mum, you need to breathe. Mum, you need to go and have a rest. Okay? They can often see what we need, because we're always seeing what they need, and they become very kind and understanding through it all as well. So take your time with this. And remember, one of the most important things I've had to learn is that with our kids, we say it more than once. And especially if we have males, we have beautiful sons, we repeat ourselves, and not with exasperation, but with the understanding that that's what their brain needs. They need the repetition, they need the eye to eye, all right? And I can't tell you enough, I can't emphasize it enough, that when our children get older, they actually appreciate the fact that we've put this time and effort in to helping them, because it helps them outside of the home. It helps them in relationships with other people, because then they're able to help other people understand what's happening for them as well. Okay? It's this whole language that we need. Sorry, I'm just going to get a bit emotional. When I sit here and think about how much I taught my kids without any of this information, it's a bit overwhelming. I'm just grateful we've got all the language now. The language is just so important. One of the things I wished I'd been able to understand as a mum, no 2 days are ever the same when we're doing trauma recovery for ourselves and helping our kids understand, No 2 days will ever be the same. But what we can do is, especially when the kids are at school, for me, I found that I could have a time frame of everything, and that really helped not just stay on track on the good days, but it helped me go, right, at this time this will be happening, and it helps them to know that at this time I'm available, we're going to be doing this together. And it makes for great communication and understanding. And it also eases the pressure on us to be performing the same every day. I came out of a family, and I love my family. Don't get me wrong. I love everything that my mum was able to do for us in the time and frame that she did. And look, honestly, everything that my mum did taught me a lot, how to be a strong, independent woman. We just needed the emotional side, but it cost my mum her life. And they, with Bessel van der Kolk's work, they prove now how if you don't process your emotions, it's going to cause you illnesses. So I'm great, and it cost my mum her life, okay, because she didn't have all of this, and she had to keep everything hidden in order that she could parent and keep a roof over our head and so much more. So we have to let go of the expectations of the generations that have gone before us. We do. And no 2 days will be the same. But in the long term, recovery is a long-term vision. It's not a short-term goal. And anyone who says they've recovered from this, they might be in remission, but because this is how our brain was formed differently and for generations, we don't just get over it and get through it. We are working our recovery for the rest of our lives in multiple ways. But it does not mean that we cannot have a full and happy life, all right? There's big difference in the belief systems that go with that. We need to be able to understand our emotions. We need to be able to put language, so words around them. Just Google emotional table, and you'll find in Google so many visuals, infographics on emotions that will help both you and whatever age your child is. I wish I'd had these when my kids were young. Because I spent my life reading books, I had a really big vocabulary. So I was able to help them label their emotions. And it's a really good practice when your kids are young, just to sit with them and help them and give them, say, look, if you need to sit there with a dictionary and learn what each emotion is so that you can explain it, do that. I do that in my work, okay? I'll look things up. I'll research. It's invaluable what we can do and what we can teach our kids and put into their lives when they're young. And even when they're older, and we can say, we'll sit there, look it up. Is that really how you're feeling? And give them the options of saying yes or no, etc., etc. And just take it easy, one day at a time. And it can be made into a fun practice. And if you're feeling constant overwhelm, then you can sit down and say to them, this is what it feels like, this is what it doesn't. One of the things my kids said to me when they were teenagers was, Mum, are you angry at us? Every night I'd get tired, especially when I started to do study around 4 years ago, I think. Every time we move into a greater part of our recovery, we do have to go through the same process like Nick did yesterday, in that we gauge how much we can do. Because the brain's plastic, we keep stretching how much we do, but it does make us tired. So when I was studying, I'd get really tired right around dinner time, and I said to my kids, oh my goodness, no, I'm not angry at you at all. My brain is really tired, and it becomes hard to focus on what I need to do for dinner. And ever since then, they were like, oh, Mum, you need to, if it happens, they know basically the only time I'm angry or short is if I'm tired. I'm not somebody who has up and down moods, so to speak. So learn what it is for you. Teach them, bring them into the environment so that they can understand, and it also gives them an understanding of when that's happening for them as well. If we use all of this communication, okay, it is so invaluable to them. It'll be so priceless to the generation that comes after them as well, okay? And it does create super strong bonds between you as well. Anyone who knows my children and I know that we have really close bonds because we have this ability to communicate at a deeper level. And it's something that we've all chosen to do together, continue to do together as adults. Okay, so give yourself time. Everything else can wait. All right? The most important thing is the relationship between you and your kids, having time to communicate at whatever stage they're at, getting rid of any expectations, and let's just do life together, one step, one day at a time. Okay, I didn't want to overwhelm you for the first one back this week. I hope that helps. I hope it helps you put into place some steps as a parent. And as a mum, you can understand that we can do this and we can raise children that even though we may have passed on genes, we may have had to come through trauma in this life, in our adult life as well, that we can still raise children who have the kindest, most caring hearts and live full, productive lives for everything that we've come through, and that we are the first generation that are creating change for the generations that come after us. Have a gorgeous Monday if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, a wonderful Sunday night in the Northern Hemisphere, and remember, we're the turtles. We do everything slowly, but we win the race. Okay, blessings and dreams, and I'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye for now.